Okay, so today we are doing a deep dive into building an inclusive workplace.
Like a plan?
We're going to be looking at Toby Mildon. He's got some really interesting stuff.
Yeah, he's great.
We've got excerpts from his books, Building Inclusivity and Inclusive Growth.
Awesome.
And a brochure from his consultancy as well.
Oh, cool.
So he's got a lot of experience in this space, and we're going to try to pull out the most actionable insights for you.
Yeah, and what's really interesting about Mildon, and I think makes him so effective, is that he brings in his own personal experience as a disabled professional.
Yeah.
And the kind of exclusion that he's faced.
It's true.
Which adds a whole other level to his advice, I think.
It does. Like, he has that story about being told to leave a client's office because his wheelchair was a fire hazard. Talk about a wake-up call, right?
Yeah.
So it's no wonder that he's so passionate about making workplaces better for everyone.
And that passion really comes through in his approach. Yeah. He's not just talking about, like, HR initiatives. He's really advocating for, like, a full-on change management approach.
Yeah.
You know, he even compares it to, like, implementing a massive new IT system.
Totally.
You wouldn't just, like, plug it in and pray that it works.
Right.
It takes planning and buy-in from, like, everyone across the organization.
Absolutely.
And consistent effort to actually make it successful.
Yeah.
So that really resonated with me.
It's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And speaking of buy-in, you know, he makes this really, I think, crucial point that inclusivity isn't just an HR project.
Right.
It's everyone's responsibility. And he gives all these examples of different departments like procurement, technology, internal comms.
Yeah, yeah.
They all have a role to play.
For sure.
It's about recognizing that inclusion touches every aspect of the employee experience.
Yeah, and it's interesting. He takes it a step further and he says, you know, true inclusion goes beyond just demographics.
Right.
He's talking about, like, diversity of thought and experiences and even leadership styles.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
He even mentions this tool called the GC Index. Have you heard of that?
I have, yeah. It's like it helps teams understand their natural strengths and weaknesses.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it identifies different leadership styles and it can help create a more balanced leadership approach.
Right.
Which I think is crucial for, you know, inclusive decision-making and problem-solving. Yeah. And think about it, like, how much more innovative and effective could your team be if you've got this wider range of perspectives at the table?
That's a great point. So, I mean, we're talking about, like, a fundamental shift in company culture here.
Totally, yeah.
And Mildon's a big advocate for leadership walking the talk.
For sure.
Right. It's not enough to just talk about inclusivity. Mm-hmm. Leaders need to model those inclusive behaviors every single day.
Yeah, he actually provides this framework. It's called the Perceptions Inclusive Leadership Behaviors Checklist. I think you might find this useful.
Oh, interesting.
So it basically helps organizations kind of assess, like, how are our leaders doing in terms of inclusivity?
Okay.
It covers things like empathy, you know, courage to challenge bias, creating a safe space for difficult conversation.
Which is so important, right?
Absolutely.
Especially for, like, underrepresented groups who may not always feel comfortable speaking up.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And that actually leads us to another key aspect of Mildon's approach, which is that he's a huge proponent of human-centered design when it comes to the employee experience.
Yeah, yeah.
He's all about, like, mapping out the entire employee journey from the moment someone, like, applies for a job to the day they leave the company.
Yeah.
And really identifying, like, what are the potential roadblocks along the way? And those could be anything from, like, an inaccessible website to, you know, policies that don't work for single parents or caregivers.
Right, right.
So many different things.
It's about taking a step back and saying, okay, if I'm someone who, you know, has different needs or experiences than my own, like, what would that look like?
Exactly, yeah.
How can we make this a more welcoming environment for everyone?
And he actually gives this really cool example from Intuit, the company behind TurboTax.
Yeah.
They use this, like, design for delight framework to really understand their customers' needs like, at a deep level.
Yeah.
And his point is that, like, organizations can and should be applying those same principles to their employees.
That's so smart. Instead of just assuming, like, oh, this is what our employees need. Perspectives and design experiences that work for everyone.
Precisely. And he even gets into, like, how technology can be a real game changer when it comes to building inclusivity.
Oh, okay. I'm ready to geek out a little bit.
All right. Well, he suggests, you know, using data to your advantage. You know, there are all these tools out there now. Like he mentions in Chorus, which can like collect real-time feedback from employees.
Oh, interesting.
About their experiences.
Wow.
And this allows organizations to pinpoint like really specific areas for improvement.
Wow.
And as he puts it, he says, until organizations are in a position to have fully respectful and inclusive cultures, we will not crack diversity. Like he sees technology as a key driver in achieving that cultural shift.
It's like having a finger on the pulse, basically, of your organization's culture.
Yeah.
And constantly monitoring and adjusting.
Yeah.
To make sure that you are creating a more inclusive environment.
And then, you know what? It's also important to celebrate those wins along the way.
Yeah.
And not just to like toot your own horn, but to inspire others.
Right.
And create this like ripple effect of positive change.
I like that.
Right. Sharing those best practices, whether they're big or small, can make a real difference.
Yeah, because success breeds success.
Exactly.
Right. And by like highlighting those wins, you're showing everyone like this is possible.
Yeah.
This is what we can achieve.
Exactly.
So let's, strive for more.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. But one thing that's clear is that Mildon believes in a data-driven approach.
Absolutely.
To building inclusivity.
Yeah.
And that starts with collecting diversity data.
Right.
But he also recognizes that this can be a very sensitive area.
Absolutely.
So how can organizations gather this information in a way that's both effective but also respectful? What do you think?
Well, it's all about transparency and building trust.
Okay.
Being really upfront with employees about why you're collecting this data, how it's going to be used, what steps you're taking to protect their privacy.
Sure.
It's also crucial to really communicate the benefits of participating.
Yeah.
Emphasizing how their feedback is going to contribute to creating a more inclusive workplace for everyone.
Right.
And of course, getting buy-in from leadership is absolutely crucial.
Right.
When leaders are actively participating, encouraging others to do the same, it sets the tone for the entire organization.
It makes it clear that this isn't just like a, check the box exercise.
Totally.
This is about genuinely creating a workplace where everyone feels valued and respected.
Absolutely, yeah.
And empowered to bring their full selves to work.
And then once you've collected that data, it's not enough to just let it sit there.
Right.
You need a plan for how you're going to actually interpret those insights and translate them into meaningful action.
Right.
Which actually brings us to another interesting point that he makes. He's a big proponent of not just relying on quantitative data, the numbers.
Yeah.
He emphasizes the importance of qualitative data as well.
Oh, interesting. So we talked about the data, the strategy, implementation, all that good stuff.
Right. All important.
But Mildon also highlights this other aspect that I think sometimes gets overlooked, which is celebration.
Yes.
And he's not talking about just throwing a party.
No. It's about taking it to the next level. You've done all this work. You've made these changes. Now it's time to kind of shout it from the rooftops a little bit.
Okay, so how do you do that? How do organizations go about that?
Well, he talks about the importance of social media, for one.
Okay.
And not just broadcasting your message, but really engaging in those two-way conversations. You know, listening to feedback, monitoring your reputation online.
Showing up authentically, right? It can't just be lip service.
Absolutely.
You have to actually be walking the walk.
Exactly. And this is where those online platforms like Glassdoor, Indeed, where employees can leave reviews, they can really make or break you.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to attracting diverse talent.
Everybody's social proof.
Exactly.
People are going to be like, okay, well, what are other people saying about this company?
Totally.
Is this a place where I'm actually going to feel welcome and included?
Exactly. And that's where those online reviews can be so powerful.
It's huge.
He also talks about being strategic about awards and benchmarks. Don't just go after every shiny object out there.
Right.
Really focus on the ones that are aligned with your values, with your ADI goals.
Yeah, quality over quantity.
Exactly. And when you do get that recognition, shout it from the rooftops, right? Share those achievements internally and externally. Celebrate, recognize the contributions of your team and inspire others to follow in your footsteps.
I love that. And it doesn't just have to be these formal awards or anything like that. What about just sharing stories and best practices?
Oh, he loves that.
Okay.
Through blog posts, case studies, even hosting events.
Yeah.
He sees those as really powerful ways to kind of showcase your inclusive culture in action.
Yeah, don't just tell me, show me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Highlight those real stories from your employees. Share examples of how you've overcome challenges. Let your actions speak for themselves.
Yeah, bring that journey to life.
Exactly.
It's so much more powerful.
And inspire others.
Then inspire others to take action, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And he even talks about partnering with organizations that share your values, whether it's recruitment agencies that specialize in diversity and inclusion, or, industry groups that are promoting best practices, even universities that are, trying to build a more diverse pipeline of future talent.
Yeah.
These partnerships can really amplify your message, expand your reach, and help you build a stronger reputation for inclusivity.
Yeah, we're all in this together.
Exactly.
It takes a village.
It does.
So, join forces and work together to create a more equitable and inclusive world. This whole idea of celebrating progress kind of reminds me of that quote, what gets measured gets done.
Right.
By celebrating those wins, big or small, we're not just like patting ourselves on the back, but we're reinforcing those inclusive behaviors. And we're making it clear that this is an ongoing priority.
Exactly. This is not a one and done.
It's part of our DNA.
Exactly.
This is who we are.
Yeah.
It's an ongoing commitment, and it takes time.
For sure.
It takes effort. It takes heart. But, as Mildon so powerfully reminds us, he says, until organizations are in a position to have fully respectful and inclusive cultures, we will not crack diversity.
So true.
So let's get to work, and let's celebrate our successes along the way.
Couldn't agree more. It's a journey worth taking.
Absolutely. And there you have it, a deep dive into Toby Mildon's wisdom on building a truly inclusive workplace. We explored everything from data collection and strategy development to implementation, communication, and celebration.
We covered a lot of ground today.
We did cover a lot.
Yeah.
But I think the key takeaway here is that building an inclusive workplace, it's not a one-time project. It's an ongoing commitment.
Right.
It's about creating a culture where everyone feels valued, respected, and empowered to bring their full selves to work.
Absolutely. It's about creating a workplace where everyone can thrive.
And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep building a more inclusive world.